Hello, everybody.
Hi.
We're back and stuck at home still.
And we're at home and it's hot.
Hot as a motherfucker.
It's
Sorry,
hot,
Mom.
baby. We're sacrificing because we wish we had our air conditioners on, but we want you guys to hear us, so here we are.
I know that is the hard part. Just turn all fans and AC off when you're recording and you're just like slowly melting.
Just us and our sweaty balls.
Exactly. Speaking of balls, just kidding. That has nothing to do with today's episode.
So uncomfortable.
You're like, how are you going to turn this into?
Well,
today,
you know what? If we want to talk about biology, balls
yes.
are why we're here, I guess, right?
Perfect. Perfect. And speaking of why we're here, parents come to mind.
Fuck.
That was a rough intro. Sorry, Mom and Dad, but
anyway.
We're stuck with it now. This episode is really special. So we introed it in the last episode. You guys have an idea what it's about. I interviewed my parents. I think it was in December, actually. So a couple months ago, about their experience in the last couple of years of just quitting their jobs in their 50s, moving to Africa for years and years, and that whole decision and where it came from and what they learned and what people thought of it and all of those things. And we had it kind of as a backlog episode, and then we just realized, we're in quarantine, we can't have live guests, and this is a very relevant topic, in fact, when it comes to reassessing what makes you happy in your daily life. And even if you're in a routine like we all were, and like what would happen if you just jumped ship, and we were all kind of forced to. Mm-hmm. My parents were not, obviously, they made that decision for themselves, but since we're all faced with that now, like what would you want your life to look like if you could change it? And the thing is, it sounds cliche and oversimplified, but you can change it. It's not easy, but you can. And not, at any age. So they've taught me that throughout life, but the story that they tell in this interview is crazy and everybody is enthralled with it. And when I tell people that I meet about my parents and what they do, I mean, everybody's reaction is the same, no matter what kind of person, what age, what race, what gender, what profession they're in, everybody reacts the same.
Yeah.
And it's this like awe and like, oh my God, your parents are the coolest people I know.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody with a story like you, and that's why it's just so great to know you. And after this quarantine is over, I just want to your parents to come and we spend time with them, because I have so many questions myself, and I know they're going to be answered in this episode. Mm-hmm. But it's a really well-timed episode for us, and we didn't know when we were going to air this interview that you did, and I think this is a great time because, and we'll be talking about this in our future episodes, but we have friends in the service industry that are now realizing that they don't want to do this anymore. That all this time, of course we want money and we want to work for money, but it's just a really beautiful time for people that are looking to switch and looking for a new way to feel satisfied in their work life, because this quarantine is because most people are laid off. Yep. And this is the time to really reevaluate and have that SOS moment that we talk about every damn episode, and find out what truly feeds you. Because, if you don't have the, I think I said confidence that your parents have. That's, pretty much
confidence.
Yeah, the cojones, talk about balls, to change careers like that. Yeah. So I feel like this quarantine is an excuse for a lot of people, which is a great thing in itself, but to not have
it gives
that.
You a preview of, for lack of a better word, what your self-identity could feel like if it wasn't attached. If you're in a career that you love, great. And obviously this doesn't apply to you as much, but the concept of having a side gig that you're not so crazy about, or part of your money coming from something you don't love, or a day job, and then this forced break of wait, I don't have to hit pause on who I really am and go do this job that I hate, and then clock back into myself when I get home. because that's what it feels like when you're doing something you don't love. It's like I'm myself, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I have to go to work, and I just like I don't feel like myself for the next 6-7 hours, and then I come back to myself, and it's jarring, but we get used to it.
Yeah.
And now we're taken away from that, and you get to have this sense of like, oh, this is what it feels to be fully me.
Yeah.
Like, of course, not to diminish any of the struggles we're all going through financially, health-wise, all of that. But, we're talking about the career aspect of it. And I think we minimize, our conversation with Rudy that you guys all just heard, the shaman we had on, we minimize the power that we actually possess to change our lives and shape our lives. And it doesn't mean we're in control of everything, because obviously we're not, but it's acknowledging that you are in control of tuning into your own intuition and following it. You don't have the answers to where that leads you, but that's what my parents have taught me, the value in that, because that gets you somewhere beautiful, even though you can't name where it's going to be.
And I have so much admiration for that, because for myself, I have a bit of an issue trusting my intuition and going there. But what's interesting too is that, like, when I talk to my friends, I talk to my friends all the time, and especially now, for example, yesterday my friend, we were taking this like stupid quiz, like a personality quiz, I think, on something stupid. And one of the questions was like, what word do you describe? What word would your friends describe you? And one of the options was ambitious. And I was going through all the other ones, and my friend was like, ambitious for you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I think I am the least ambitious person ever. Oh,
I mean, Alyssa, you moved to LA to pursue acting. Do you know that already puts you in a category beyond most people's ambition?
I know, but I think as someone, and not to bring up the service industry again, but I feel like being in a field where you just feel so unsatisfied and it's soul crushing, and you don't know who you are or during that time, and it's like you said,
and you're condescended to on the daily.
You lose that trust. You lose that trust in your intuition. No matter what work you're actually doing in reality, it doesn't matter, because there's a part of you that you lose when you're not doing what you love. So
even because you cannot stop yourself from identifying with that on some level.
Yeah.
Even if you're telling yourself like, this is just my side job, this isn't me, your psyche doesn't know that. Like, that is also, it's going to seep into who you identify as on some level.
Yeah. Wait, so tell the listeners a little bit before we get into the interview, like what to expect, and like, I joked about it before, but I was like, your history with your parents. Like, when did you and your parents meet, Molly?
So my parents and I met. It was a really funny story.
It was 1989.
Yes. That 1989 is when I met my dad. I guess I met my mom before then. So yeah.
Wait, no, you met your dad first.
I met my dad first. Was I my mom then at that moment? And then I met my dad? I don't understand.
Oh, wait. No, because we're the sperm, weren't we? Yeah,
we are the sperm. I was the fastest swimmer. We're going way back here.
We won. We got it.
So, I had a really unique childhood that, as a child, I didn't appreciate I appreciated it, but I didn't realize how unique it was. But I quickly realized, because at the age of 9 was the first time we went abroad. We went to West Africa, of all places. It wasn't like a soft transition into like a nice place in a first world country. It was straight to Ghana and Niger. My dad had lived in Niger for years before, in the 80s. And he had a family out there that was like this woman, Taluma, who we have pictures of her in our house. We heard about her. I had heard about her my whole life. It was his mom in the village he lived in, and they were so close. I knew what she looked like. We always hear about Taluma. He'd get her on the phone once in a while. And this was one of the most moving. So we went to his old village, but he wasn't able to communicate with them beforehand that he was coming, because, it was before cell phones and everything. And it was just like, oh, we're going to show up, And so we spent a lot of time in Ghana. Then we found a ride out into, this is in my 9-year-old mind. I just remember being in this Jeep, like driving in the middle of the Sahara, like in the middle of nowhere in the desert, forever. I don't remember there being a road. There probably was one. Anyway, we just like eventually there's like some mud huts and Dad's like, oh, that's Shakal. That's the village. And we just like stop. The car just stops and we get out and the driver pulls away. And I guess he was whoever my parents met. He just came to get us whenever we left. Anyway, we walk up to the village and they have no idea that we're coming. And Taluma has not seen my dad in, I don't know how long it had been, like over 20 years.
Wow.
Maybe 15 to 20 years, something huge. And we're talking as we walk up to the huts and she has no reason to think that he's there. No reason. And she hears his voice and we hear her from inside the hut. She just goes, Tom? Like it was another day for her and she just heard a voice and she knew it was him. No reason to think that he would be there. My mom started tearing up. She ran out of her hut and she knew his voice and she just ran out and they were crying and hugging and my mom was crying and hugging and I'm 9 and Dylan is 7 and we're just like, and everyone in the village is like now gathered around, and we're just like, what is that? And there's just like embracing and hugging. It was really emotional. And the village, I remember their livestock was just bones with skin stretched over them. Like I'll never forget the cows. You see everything. Wow. You see the hips, the ribs, everything. And they don't have a lot of food, but they were celebrating my dad, like us being there. And they killed like one of the cows and a chicken and they cooked like this big feast for us with rice that night. We ate it with our hands around the fire. All the village, they were obsessed with I had a flashlight and Taluma was obsessed with it and she just kept playing with it. And my mom was like, you should leave that with Taluma. And I'm like, what? No, it's my flashlight. I like that flashlight. And she's like, Molly, we're going to leave it here. We'll get you another flashlight. And she kept it. And they were like playing music. And the chicken, I remember them like for Dylan and I, it was just like very much like, this is super real. Like they're grabbing the chicken, they're holding it upside down. They're just chop the neck off. They're draining the blood. They're plucking, they're doing all like right in front of it. They're like, this is what we're eating tonight. And when you're a kid, you're so adaptable. Because I wasn't scared. I wasn't put off. It was just like, oh, cool. There's kids around. So half the kids are running around naked because they have no clothes. The other half is wearing, like, my mom saw somebody with a Nebraska Cornhuskers shirt on because all the stuff that is like donated from us gets sent over and it ends up there. Like whatever team loses the Super Bowl, all that merch goes over to, a lot of it goes to Africa or like whoever loses.
Wait, I didn't even.
Whatever sports championship, all that merch is sent over. Yeah. And it was just like, but nobody, I don't know. So that would literally, I could go so far into that, but that was my first experience traveling. And I was 9, like I said, and we were in Africa for weeks. We go back home. We lived in Iowa at the time, like a very small town. And I'm like realizing when I come back that like, oh my God, like these kids around me that I identify with, these are my peers, but they don't understand that there's more to the world. And like, how could they, their children, but also now I realize a lot of the adults didn't as well. But that was my childhood over and over. We lived in Norway. We lived in China. We traveled. By the time I was 17, we went to 15 different countries and lived abroad in multiple of them. And we saw all these cultures and we weren't staying in we were living with the locals wherever we went. We never stayed at nice places. It was just you absorb the lifestyle. I basically had a childhood of learning how to be a visitor in someone's country over and over and over, learning pieces of this language, piece of that language, customs here, what's polite, what's rude, what you eat, Dylan and I were never picky eaters. We didn't have the opportunity to be because of these experiences. And yet we always lived in small towns in America. And so every time we came back home, it was like this slap in the face, especially coming back home when I was like 11 and I'm 12. And then I come back home from another place when I'm 17 and I'm all these other kids around me that are my peers. I'm like, it's not like coming back to New York or LA where a lot of people are transplants or have been. It's like these small towns where people haven't left for generations. And like, but don't you understand? We are like part of the world. Like we're part of something bigger. We're not just part of Washington State.
Yeah.
You can go past Seattle.
Would you say that experience of always feeling like, not feeling like, but knowing that feeling of being a visitor and being so open to different experiences kind of made you, kind of select the people you surrounded yourself with growing up, like friendship wise? Like, did you realize like, oh, that person is so close minded? So, I mean, in general, I feel like you would be like that anyway.
I
But
think,
I think be privy to people's privileges and be like, that's just so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It really made me feel at the same time very much a part of the world and very much isolated from where we were, because I remember what I learned to do is to meet people where they're at and not try to make someone understand something that you can only get from a certain experience, not try to explain something to someone who doesn't really care. Because a lot of people, they have interest in your travels, but like, you know, when I come home, I'm like 17 and come back from 6 months living overseas, people want to hear some stories, but at a certain point of my experience, they didn't. It was like, okay, I get it. That's cool. You're in China. Like, where's the party at tonight? You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay. So what I learned to do, like in high school, I had some close friends, but I don't stay in touch with anybody from high school. And I knew I had a great time in high school, but I knew I was like, this is for now. And I had friends there that I loved and I had good experiences, but I knew it was temporary because I knew I was going to get out and go somewhere else and do so many more things that it wasn't where, and I have respect for people who don't, if that's what you want, but I knew that I wanted to do that. And I didn't find anybody at that time that I related to on a deep level. I got those friends later in life, college and beyond. But yeah, it did give me the ability to kind of, like I said, being adaptable and the ability to morph into and find appreciation in so many different, because I have such an appreciation for small town life and the people I meet there and the people I grew up with.
Yeah.
But the people I connect with on a deeper level have a certain worldview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that they've traveled everywhere, but you're right. It's like a mentality, like the way I connect to you or anybody close in my life is different.
Yeah. I found the same way because they did traveling, but not as much traveling as your parents did. But like my parents, my dad was in the Air Force, so they did a lot of moving around before I was born. So my sister, who's 10 years older, she did a lot of that moving. And I feel like it's fascinating because my family, my extended family is more conservative than we are. And I feel like we owe a lot of our open-mindedness and our love for other cultures and people in general. I'm not saying that's not a conservative trait, but let's be real. Owe that to my grandparents, my mom's parents, but a lot because I was raised with people that traveled and adapted and learned other languages. And I don't know what I would, I don't know how different we would be if they didn't have that experience that I was able to be brought up with, if that makes any sense. So
yeah,
it's
because
such a
even
beautiful
if you
experience to have had. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, even if they hadn't taken me or my brother anywhere, or like, even though you didn't grow up the same exact way that your sister did, you are raised by those people.
Yeah.
You're both raised by those people with that mentality. And it's just this understanding of, we have so many stories. It bonds you as a family too, because there's so many things that, for cumulatively, all the times we lived abroad, it was like multiple years of my childhood where none of us were fluent in the language of where we were. We learned pieces here and there, but it's the four of us against the world. It's the four of us trying to figure out this thing, trying to figure out what to order at a restaurant, trying to figure out what this means. How does this bathroom work? How does, like, simple but funny things when you're traveling, especially when you're in like second and third world countries. And we went so many times where you're like, oh, where's the bathroom? And someone points to a hole in the ground. There's not even like, it's just like, oh, okay. And you learn to travel with wadded up toilet paper in your pocket because there's probably not going to be any wherever you're going. And you learn to just eat whatever and not ask what it is because you won't be able to understand the answer anyway.
Yeah.
And like, exist in places with miserable weather conditions, whether it's incredibly hot, incredibly cold, or there's cockroaches in the apartment, or there's like unpleasant things, but it's also the reality of so many people in the world.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I'm so grateful. That's the best gift that they ever gave to me and my brother. I'm so incredibly grateful. But they didn't. They live up to it because it wasn't like, oh, we're just doing this for our kids. Because as you'll find out in this interview, they always talked about wanting to move to Africa together again, and it came to a point where they realized, like, okay, but when is that? We're the ones that decide when that is. We're healthy. We're like physically able to still, they were in their 50s. I forget their ages, but yeah, in their 50s and not retiring yet, but a little burnt out on their jobs. Dylan and I are out of the house. We're out of college. And, it's like, if you don't make that decision, no one's going to make it for you. My dad said something in the interview. I forget exactly, but it was basically like, the secret is nobody gives a shit what you do. So do what you want to do. Like, people will pass judgments on it, but they forget about it after a while because it's not their life. It's your life.
No one gives a shit.
Yeah,
so remember
no one
that.
Gives a shit.
No one gives a shit, so do what you want. And we said this in our last career fulfillment episode. I think it was our second episode. You could fail doing what you don't love, something you hate. So you might as well just try and do what you love. And you might succeed, you might fail, but hey, at least you're trying. And that's why I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this episode. Should be intro?
Me too.
Let them. All right. Well, here is a beautiful interview with Molly and her parents. Enjoy.
This is Tom and Renee Cottrell, and you're listening to
SOS with Molly and Alyssa.
All right, guys. So I'm here with my parents, Renee Cottrell and Tom Cottrell. Hello, guys.
Hello, Molly.
Hey, Molly.
They're stuck with me. Okay, so I have...
Did you say stuck? We're never stuck.
I have a couple questions for you guys regarding your life experience. So I know that you guys had talked about wanting to do this, to travel and go abroad, and you had mentioned the Peace Corps at various points throughout my life, but when was the earliest time you guys remember discussing amongst yourselves, like, oh, one day we'd love to do this?
Well, when we met, I had just got back from Peace Corps the first time, and when we met, we were talking about it, and you said right away that you'd like to do it, and I thought, oh my God, I've been gone 2 years living in a hut. Sometime, honey.
Yeah, so then we decided we would do it. We just didn't know when, and then we thought, the when will be after we have kids and after they're grown and they're done with college. We'll go. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the plan.
Yeah.
Talked about not semi-regularly, I guess. What'd you say?
Yeah, I remember hearing it here and there. And just, it was a regular thing that you guys brought up. Like, we traveled as a family a lot, but I remember it being like, yeah, one day we'd like to join the Peace Corps together, or we'll travel later. And I always believed it because I knew you guys, but a lot of people say that stuff and it's just, oh, it'd be great one day. And so then I was actually curious because I've never asked you guys, but the day at home in Washington State after Dylan and I are out of college and grown up, the day you had the actual conversation where you're like, we're doing this. Let's apply. Let's do this.
I don't know if I don't remember exactly the moment because it was an ongoing decision that it grew stronger and stronger. Like most of our decisions, we think about it and we'll even, it's like we decide it multiple times, even though it's the same decision each time we decide it, like every day, well, I think we should do this. And I'm thinking, well, didn't we just decide that last night? But I think we should do this. And it felt like that to me with this decision.
It did, but I think I was more anxious to just like want to go. Like I can remember bringing it up and Dad would say, well, I don't think quite yet, like in another year or whatever. And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but kind of, it was the fall of 2014. And we thought, we need to do this. We're going to apply right now and we're going to see what happens. And if we'll figure out the whole job house thing later, but this is the time. Molly and Dylan are done with school.
Thinking about where you guys were. Yeah, for sure.
And for us, we're thinking, we've taught now for a number of years. We're healthy now. We should just take the time and do it.
And you know this story, but the thing that occurred to me the first time that I went to Peace Corps was walking to class when I was at Boulder, going to school, and seeing a sign that was advertising Peace Corps, and walking with this girl who was in the class with me, and I looked at the Peace Corps ad, and I said, I'd like to do that. And she said, yeah, I'd like to do that too. And in my snarky mind, I said to myself, you'll never do that. And we walked farther, and I thought, wait a minute, if I don't do it now, I won't do it. And that's kind of been something that has occurred to us over the years, that you get to a point you think, okay, a decision needs to be made. And sliding along without making a decision is actually a decision. It's a weak decision, and you need to realize it. I mean, weak, I don't mean it in a negative, but it's a passive decision. And I think we've never wanted to make passive decisions. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that maybe when I was in high school, that story about you walking past this, because I've always remembered that and thought about it. And I love picturing you at that age too, just walking through campus, like, you're not going to do that. And then like, am I going to do that? But I have thought about it multiple times. That's one of the biggest lessons, because you live the same way, Mom. And it's one of the biggest lessons I've gained, because I have had moments where I'm like, yeah, that'd be fun. Or actually, when I was studying abroad in Australia, I remember one of my goals was to go skydiving. And I didn't have it. No one from my school was there at my program. I didn't know anybody. And I walked past this kiosk one day, and they were advertising it, and it was the best price I had seen. And I walked in by myself, and there was this kid from Canada there too. And he's like, are you signing up? And I was like, yeah, for tomorrow morning. And he's like, okay, me too. And then we both went back to our apartments. I don't know where he lived. I didn't know this guy. And I'm like, but in that moment, I thought of your story. I was walking past the kiosk, and I was like, yeah, I really want to do that. And then I was like, well, what? Am I going to make like a best friend in a month that I really want to go? I don't care. I want to do this. So I got up at like 4 a.m., took a bus to a train, met that kid there. I'm fairly convinced, didn't want to go because we were about to miss our train, and he's like walking, and I was like, we're going to miss it. And I just remember looking at him and going, I'm running. And he goes, okay. And I took off, and then he like chased after me. Anyway, we just did it by myself. And it was one of my favorite experiences. And it's you guys, it's that story you told me, Dad, but it's a way of life. But everybody, you have to be self-aware to have those moments. And we all have things we want to do. And then the moment passes, and you're like, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
One thing that has also moved me always, thinking, well, I better decide now, or I may need to make a decision. Another thing is, to not decide is frightening to me.
Yes.
To think, well, yeah, that's possible. That's possible, but you have to decide, and it's scary to think that my life would go along without me driving it.
But because it will.
And because it will.
And that's a scarier thought to us
Yeah.
than to go into something that maybe you don't know, or you're a little bit, we weren't frightened for Peace Corps, but something that's just so unknown and such a big difference. But it's a more frightening thought to think that I'm going to be complacent and just stay here because that's a safety zone, and we don't operate that way. We won't.
Yeah, and honestly, my biggest fear would be getting to the end of my life and thinking, I wish I had really gone after that, instead of thinking, man, I really went for it and it didn't work. I'd be so much more depressed and full of regret if I was like, God, I should have spent all of this time I've had on earth doing this. And if you don't, you're not in control of everything. So what happens. But to pursue what you actually want, it sounds really simple, and we get complacent and we don't.
But I am in control of you. So this is good.
Another frightening thought.
Okay. So once you made this decision, what were the reactions from family and friends?
They'd been around us long enough. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they were. But one of the reactions was, what about the kids?
Yeah.
And we thought,
You laugh.
well, I know, because we're thinking, okay, because at that time, that was in 2015, 2014.
Yeah.
So you were 25, Dylan was 23, and we're thinking the kids are the kids. Like, they're grown and they're out of college. They know what they're doing.
You already live across the country.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we figured, not that you need to be like way far from your kids, but we thought you can come see us, we can come see you. Yeah. And we clearly in our heads wanted to raise you guys to do what you wanted to do, but to realize it wasn't, this sounds kind of I don't know how it sounds. It doesn't really matter. At our expense, it was like
Yeah.
we still have things we want to do.
You're
so
still
we
your
want to
own
do
people.
stuff with you guys and expose you to stuff, but that doesn't mean that what we want to do stops. And so we were like excited, and people ran with that excitement. I mean, they
I
were
remember
stunned and they
another-
were shocked, but
You
like,
remember
well,
this, a Christmas party we were at my department. Actually, it was the college. And so we were seeing people, friends we had across campus who came to the Christmas party, and people were saying, well, so this would have been the Christmas before we left. And what do how are things going? And some people had heard what we were going to do. And one friend walked up and he said, is it true you guys are joining the Peace Corps, just leaving your school, leaving your department and leaving her school? And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's a ballsy move. We talked about that a lot.
we have, but we didn't look at it that way
No, we didn't.
because
That
we
was
were
the
just
first time we
doing what
thought
we
of it.
wanted to do. Yeah, but we have used that.
It's a ballsy move to not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
It is.
abandon.
To abandon it.
Yeah.
Let me add one thing
Yeah,
because I mean this, as we're talking here, it sounds like, oh, we just forge forward and you just imagine us walking down the street like we know, so here is the other thing, flying to Senegal, when we first flew to Senegal, and we're sitting in the plane together, and and it's frightening when the things are frightening. Someone
And
told me once, I was writing some things. I was keep writing, and this person asked me what I was writing about, and I said, kind of the whole topic was about being afraid, and I said, because I know a lot about being afraid. And this was Rick, and he said, I would have thought you aren't afraid of anything. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I'm afraid of all kinds of things. But we were sitting on the plane, and we were reading a letter that you had written us.
Yeah, and crying.
And
Yes.
and
The goal.
and I had just found Mavis Staples on the iPod. I think you or Dylan, I'm not sure who
Yeah.
gave us that, and I was listening to
You're Not
You're
Alone.
Not Alone. And so we both had one bud in each ear, her ear and my ear, and we're listening to this.
And
we're
reading that letter.
reading the letter, crying.
So we're now with 64 22 and 23-year-olds who
Yeah.
are going to training with us, and we're sitting on the plane going,
Yeah.
See, that's
but it was okay. It was great.
well, and that's the misconception, because people who take risks are seen as fearless, and it's not. Nobody's fearless. It's actually the decision to look fear in the eye and do it anyway. No one is devoid of fear, and that's the thing where. Actually, it reminds me of, we were at our family reunion when I was really little, and we got there early. No one was there yet, and I had a really, really bad stomach ache. And I mean, I still remember it. I think I was probably like 7, and I'm 30, and I remember this stomach ache. It was miserable. And Grandma got there early too. We were in our cabin. I don't know. There wasn't much around, was the reason we weren't able to go get medicine or something. So she came in and she said. She gave me some 7-Up, and she was like, this, and some saltines, this will help you. And I remember it was so bad at that point. All I was telling myself in my head, the only thing I could do was say over and over and over and over, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. I had to keep repeating that in my head to not think about throwing up or how bad I felt. And over the years, and it worked. It worked. And when I would stop doing that, I'd be like, don't think about it, don't think about it, and keep your brain busy. And so when there are times where I'm afraid or I'm about to do something, if I really think I'm terrified, I just am like, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. And you populate your brain with that so nothing else fits until you do it. All right, so you guys had done a lot of traveling in the past in your lives in third world countries and a bunch of different places. So I know traveling to somewhere that foreign is not new, but what were some of the things you experienced, surprising emotions or adjustments that you weren't expecting to have to make, and or some things you learned about yourself during this time, because you can continue to prove to yourself that you don't know everything about yourself, even at the age of 55.
Well, I'll tell you a big adjustment that we were not ready for was the heat. It was unbearable, and nobody.
Apparently, we did bear it.
Well, apparently yes. So it was bearable, but kind of not. That was a big adjustment. But I remember just being really excited, and it was fun because we sat on the bus to go from the airport just to the training center, and we're with kids who had never traveled before, and their eyes were like saucers looking out the windows at stuff, and you could see they were afraid and they were nervous. And we were maybe nervous, but in a different way than they were. It was sheer excitement for me. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, and I'll get back to another thing I learned.
It's funny, things I learned. One thing that I learned was that I wasn't a 24-year-old anymore. The first time I went, my brain was still young enough that language learning was a lot easier. And when we went this time, it was much more difficult. And I kept thinking, what's wrong here? Why am I not, why do I have to hear this 20 times before I can get it? So that was a surprise. So I guess one thing I learned was that I had changed over the space of 30 years, the first time there, and the second, or not 30, 20 years, 35 years, a long time that I was there, in between the two, Niger the first time and Senegal the second. Yeah.
But I think for learning, like once we got to village, it was a matter of learning how to show our villagers that I, in fact, did know stuff. I knew how to do stuff.
As a woman.
Or just as a non-villager. I mean, they've been living that way and getting water that way and cutting wood that way and cracking peanuts that way and cooking that way. So I know how to, I have a skill set, but it wasn't their skill set. Mm-hmm. So to convince them that I do have talents too, and they did come around, but it took a bit. You feel like it might not be your way, but I can still do it. So that was one thing. And just wrapping my head around the whole, you got to make this work. Like you're going to be hot and there is no cooling. So just to make yourself do it.
And add one thing about things that I learned was how I could care for the people there in a way that I guess, when you live in the States, it's different. You're a little more, everyone's on their own in a way. You go to work, you see someone in the street, you wave and stuff, but it felt more like family.
Like a we.
Yeah. It was funny how strongly I could care for the people.
Yeah, and what you were saying, Mom, actually made me think of you getting there and feeling like you had to prove, like, I'm not incapable. I can do these things. I don't know your ways, but I can do these things. But that's a really unique experience for a Westerner to have, because how do we treat people that come from another country who don't speak the language, who haven't been in a Western society? We treat them like they don't know shit. And like they just, I need to help them do everything. And these customs are new and these traditions, the food's new, everything's new, but they're full-grown, capable adults. And that is forgotten in the United States, where we kind of take on like a white saviorism mentality, where it's like, let me show you the ways. And it's like, no, they can do it. Yeah, you can teach them things about your country, but that's not the issue. It's like they're fully capable, intelligent beings. Just because you can't communicate with them, but you were kind of experiencing it on the opposite side. Like,
well, they were open. Like they were open to us. I didn't feel like I really had to prove myself as such, but it was an opportunity for us to show them, like, look, this works too. Mm-hmm. This works too. So I don't know.
Well, I also think about, because when I would tell people what you guys were doing, I remember you guys saying, or when you would tell people that you were in the Peace Corps, and everybody would say, oh, that's so generous of you. That's so kind of you. And I remember you guys, so brave, so generous. And when I went to visit you guys in your village, and it was this thought, I know you guys had said this, and I had this thought of like, how unbelievably ignorant are we to think that if the rest of the world could only learn our ways, and if we could only show them, and I remember you guys saying, we're not here to be a savior and to help them find the light. Like you were like, we're learning more, if not the same, but if probably more than they are. They're teaching us and we're teaching them. We're not here to rescue you.
Yeah, not at all rescue.
We felt
that's a wrong idea.
One of the most important things we did was to meet people and let them meet us, and to have the interaction, human interaction was wonderful, and felt like the most important thing on those days when we were upset that things weren't going the way we wanted. We'd planted trees and other people were not interested in the trees or whatever the issue was, and we'd think, oh, what are we doing? And then someone would walk in the compound or the hut and say something, and we think, and the smile you get there mattered more than anything else.
Yeah. All right, so Peace Corps was 2 years living in Senegal, And I knew, and you guys knew, that there wasn't a definite plan afterwards. Maybe we'll come back to the States and go back to our jobs. Maybe we'll do something else. So what made you decide to continue living abroad and traveling and searching for jobs abroad?
Well, we just liked living overseas. And so we thought, okay, what are we going to do? So we thought, well, we'll start looking for teaching jobs because I can pick that up again. So not really having an idea of where, we just applied everywhere. I mean, we must have had 50 or 60 applications out there to, oh, that country.
And as far as a concept of what we did, we couldn't imagine coming back. And so, I mean, that was a part of it. It's like, I can't quite picture going back to
your jobs or to the States?
To our jobs. To my job. I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, I loved the job, but I couldn't picture myself being back there, not yet anyway.
Yeah.
And it was also to the States. I mean, we had resigned our jobs, but we could have looked again when we got back here, but we thought we still want to stay overseas. So I started applying for mine, which meant I had to leave Peace Corps a couple months before Dad. But we did land a job. We got a teaching job in Egypt, which was never on our radar, but we thought, why not? We had like 3 or 4 choices of places, and that's the one we picked. And so I left early, and Dad I set up everything there, and Dad finished everything in Senegal, and there we were.
And when
it was hard to leave that
when
village.
we got there, then I was not working out of the house, and Mom said, I've always wanted to give you another sabbatical. And had we stayed at the university, I would have had another sabbatical. But leaving, I didn't get one. So she said, here's a sabbatical for you where you can do the writing you want to do and do the photography you want to do. And which was difficult, too, because I had never had a job, in quotes, where I was...
where that was your job.
Where that was my job. I mean, sabbatical the first time was different still because I was still connected to the university. But here, it's hard, and we've talked about this, sustaining this creative urge that you have. And, Renee would go off to work, and there I was. And, there were days when it was not, I just couldn't do it. And it was, that was hard.
Well, and we really, we know we did the right thing, but we missed our village. Like, it was hard to go. It was really hard to go.
I went through a period where, feeling depressed about, and I didn't know what it was exactly, but in retrospect, a lot of it was being away from the village and the people. Even as miserable as the climate was, it was hard to leave there and the people.
Yeah.
But we knew we'd go back.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know this has a lot to do with how Dylan and I were raised, traveling, living abroad, and valuing. You guys taught us prioritize travel above all else because it expands you as a person. And people would ask me, my friends back here, your parents, isn't their service over? What are they doing next? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll find out. And then you're like, oh, they're moving to Cairo. They're moving to Egypt. Yes. And then I was up at 3 a.m. down these deep dive Google searches about ancient Egypt and became obsessed. And for me, and I know Dylan feels the same way, and people are like, oh, don't you want them to come home? Don't you? And yeah, I'd love to be able to fly and see you in 3 hours. But the thing is, it was like this lottery every time where I was like, ooh, where do I get to spend next Christmas? And I'm going to Egypt next Christmas. Yes, we're just going to make it work. We'll figure it out. And after that, we're going to go to Jordan next. Yeah, it was like this free ride. I was so excited for wherever you guys went. And I also, because I knew that you guys value, and Dylan and I value, experiencing it together. So wherever you go, even if you hate it, I'm like, well, I'm going to see the place. I'm
But
excited.
it's funny you would say that because people would ask us on our end, what about your kids? Like, what do they think? And always we would tell them, what do you mean? What do they think? Like, they think it's great. They're all about, where are you going next? Where do we get to go? And so people wonder too. And they just, they get it once they know us a little better. And
it meant so much to have you guys come visit in the places where we were, which is something with Mom being, well, the two of us being in the village in Senegal together. I didn't have someone in Niger when I was there to make those memories stay alive. And now there's you, and I'm pointing at you. You.
That's pretty standard.
And Molly and Dylan, and our friends who came as well, that keep those memories alive.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to share them.
Yeah.
And you once told us, one of you guys told us, you guys ruined us as kids. And Dad and I said, what do you mean we ruined you as kids? And you're like, because every time we travel, we go for a long time. So like if anybody tells us now, you want to go somewhere for a week, we're like, a week? Who goes somewhere for a
I
week?
thought they were talking about all the drug use.
Well, maybe I misunderstood.
No, that helped. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the experience of really living there. What you guys taught us with traveling, we're not going and staying at these 5-star resorts or these American westernized places. We're not going to McDonald's. We're staying with the locals, and a lot of times that's not glamorous. It's not comfortable. It's not. You're walking in the markets. You're getting the looks. You're getting the stares. But that's what real life is. And when I went away to college, I remember realizing that a lot of my people, I spent a lot of time in Europe. I summered over here. Did you stay at this Four Seasons? And I'm like, wait, what? I stayed on the side of a street.
Yeah.
but I know what life is like there.
Yeah.
All right. So after Egypt, my mom took a job in Jordan. And without going into that whole story, what I'm interested in is, and I admire, is you guys' continued ability to step back, look at your life, and ask yourself again, is this still what I want? Is this still what I want? Even if you know you're there for the right reasons and why you came. And we always have to continue doing that. So I am curious about the moment you stepped back again and realized you were ready to come back home, with or without a plan.
So, well, in a nutshell, the job in Jordan wasn't so hot. And so we did have to step back because it wasn't going well. We liked Jordan, we liked the people we were meeting, but the job wasn't great. So we did have to step back and think, this is not doing for us what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's not fulfilling us in the way that we want to be. And so we need to, the job was all consuming, and we thought we need to step back and regain our lives. So
When you called me and told me that it just wasn't going to work, and we'd been talking about this for a while, for a long time, but it had been rising to a peak, and you called and said, this is just, terrible. And I said, yeah, well, just do it, pull the trigger. And you said, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then I met you. I think that was the day I walked halfway to the school and you were walking back. And I remember walking down the street and we keep looking at each other with these big smiles, like
it felt so good.
It felt so good. And we knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, even though we didn't have much of a plan beyond that, that didn't matter. What mattered is that we were taking care of the stuff that wasn't going well.
The
and
plan
the rest
was to stay happy.
The plan was to be happy.
Yeah.
And so that meant walking away
and
from
was
that.
It. Yeah.
That's the thing that I learned, and I want everyone to learn from you guys, is that you don't have to, people think you have to have all the answers before you jump. And yeah, there's a level of being a responsible adult that comes into play, but you already know you're responsible adults. You'll figure it out. You have resources. But the thing is, day to day, is this what I want right now? And then if it's not, it's easy to be like, well, we're not quitters. We just stick it out. We can put up with this for another year. But why? Especially when you're at any point, but you're like, okay, 56 years old, 57, why?
Well, and that's the thing to grapple with, I suppose, would be we're not quitters, but there's also a point at which you have to look at the whole picture and think, no, I'm not a quitter, but this is not a good situation, and I am not able to make that change that I need. So then it is time to walk away.
Yeah.
Like, nobody likes to walk away and break a contract, which is what we did. But at the same time, it's more of a trap to stay in it.
Yes.
And so it was worth, whatever we went through was worth it. Here we sit today with everybody, and we don't look back. Mm-hmm. It was a good move.
Thinking too that when you make those decisions, and you think, well, are we quitters or aren't we quitters? You have to weigh for yourself, who decides how your life goes, because the people you work for typically don't care how you feel about it.
Yeah.
They want you happy enough that you stay, or unhappy enough that you leave. But in the final analysis, we're the ones who say, I'm either happy enough or not that I need to make this change. No one's looking after you.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we love each other, and a close spouse, we can look at each other and think, all right, this is it. We need to do this. But you get one more remove, and you no one's looking at, so that's a good way to make a choice.
It is.
Because nobody's going to look at you and be like, this isn't right for you. We're going to stop and look over here now. Yeah. No one's going to do that. And like you said, also, if you're in your head and your ego about, oh, what's it going to look like? Or which I know you guys aren't, but in general, when people make those decisions, it's like, oh, does this look like no one cares. No one cares enough. Even if that's their first impression, like, oh, that was kind of, they forget about it in a week.
Yeah,
you
right.
are the one that lives with that.
Yeah.
And I would so much rather get to the end and think like, that friend I had when I was 30 was really disappointed in me, than look back and be like, man, I wish I hadn't wasted a year knowing I was unhappy.
Yeah, I know.
So thank you guys so much for talking with me and sharing these stories, because people often forget that these quests for happiness and they think they stop in your 20s or your 30s, and then you figure it out and you're there, and that's not how it should go. And I'm so grateful to have been raised by two people who think that way. And yeah, so I love you both. Thank you.
We love you back.
We do too. Thanks.
They have to say that.
You gonna pay us now?
That'd be good, because we don't have jobs.
I got some wine.
Payment enough.
Okay, so there's my mom and dad.
There you have it.
There you have it, folks. The very interesting Tom and Renee Cottrell. They truly are like the most interesting thing about myself. And I say that.
Oh.
But I say that believing I'm a very interesting person.
Yeah.
I just think that they're incredible. I get so much inspiration from them. And I think their ability to view their own lives that way and face the unknown in their own lives is a big part of why they have been able to be so sincerely supportive of me and my music, because they know nothing about the music industry, the entertainment industry. Neither of them plays any instrument or sings. Like, I, of course, am not a parent, but I've often tried to imagine being a parent with no knowledge of or experience in that world, and having your kid move to Los Angeles and like try to break into the entertainment industry. Like, there's a lot of, I'm sure, anxiety and fear that could go along with that, but they've said like, yeah, we've felt that, but they never bring it up to me. They never use it as a thing to hinder my excitement or my ambition or dreams. And I think it's greatly attached to a lot of the things I just expressed, like how they view life and what's important. And they've never been the kind of person to be like, the kind of parents to be like, well, what's the answer? How are you going to achieve what you want? Like, they'll ask me that in conversation of excitement, like, yeah, how do you think you're going to, but not like, give me the answer and I'll let you do it. You know what I mean? Because there's no answer to certain things. Like, this is all they care about is, are you passionate about it? Do you love it? Is this what you want with your life? Does it feed you? Does it make you the most happy?
And those questions is like what I want listeners to take from that interview, is like those questions that your parents are like asking you. Are you happy? Do you love it? Is this going to feed you? That's the kind of questions you should be asking yourself.
Exactly.
You know, even if because it is rare for parents to be like that. I'm lucky too. I have supportive parents.
Yeah.
And we listen to your parents, and I feel like that is a rare thing for parents of artists to be as supportive, especially when we move so far away from home. We're not close, and I mean that's also another feat. You know, the moving aspect when they moved to another continent. You know, we just moved from different states, right? You know, to pursue our love, but that still is. And I mean, not taboo, but it, you know, I have a lot of friends that still, you know, don't want to pull the trigger and move away from their families, you know? And
well, and you have experience with that in the sense of like Ryan's mom, you have family that lives abroad, and it's just like, I mean, on certain levels, because they talked about, you know, how people reacted when they made this decision, family and friends and loved ones, you know, a lot of them being like, well, what about the kids? And my parents are like, well, what do you mean? They're 25 and 23 and they have their own lives. And and we already don't live in the same state. We're close. We're a close-knit family because of all the traveling mainly. But I already was only seeing them once, maybe twice a year. Like I'd see them at Christmas and maybe in the summer, hopefully. The difference is I would talk to them, like, especially my dad when they were working, because he's a professor. He didn't have like, my mom was teaching all day in class, but I talked to my dad multiple times a day, sometimes just call and be like, hey, Dad, I just read this book. I thought you'd be interested. Okay, bye. You know, and those were the things that changed because there's massive time differences. There's service issues, especially when they were living in Senegal in a village. They really out there. When they moved to Cairo, it was a little bit better. There's definitely an adjustment, though, because even though you're not seeing, I already wasn't seeing them, I could feel the distance.
Yeah.
I could feel it, and it was an adjustment. I love my parents. I miss them, but no part of me felt like every bone in my body was like, yes, go. You need to do this. You need to do this. And they use, also another reason I'm grateful is because they used each country that they moved to in Africa, they used their credit card miles or whatever to help my brother and I visit them. So I spent time in Senegal. I spent time in Egypt. They just like brought us there because, as always, they've prioritized family experiences and traveling. And they've proven to me that you don't have to have a lot of money to do these things. You have to make decisions. Like they would, sell a car for this or, save up and not. My mom would, we've talked about coupons, like cut coupons.
No, it's amazing. And they didn't even quit their job. And it's so funny, like their transition into it, how they were still, there's a leave of absence.
Yeah, they both took leave of absence because at the time they were like, is this going to be for 2 years? We don't know. They didn't sell their house right away. They rented it for the same reason. They gave our cat to a family friend to like hold on to. And then the longer it went, years went by, they moved to another country and lived again. And then it was like, you know what? When we do come back to the States, we're not going to move back to Ellensburg. We should sell our house. That family has the cat permanently now. They officially quit their jobs and they continue to find work elsewhere. So it's an evolving process. I think a lot of people are so intimidated by the fact that if I'm going to do this, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do about this and this and this and how and how and how. And they were like, well, figure it out. We have each other. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, which is why an interview like this is so important because, not obviously everybody's not going to have the same passions as your parents have and moving to different continents. But whatever you really, really want to do, it is an evolving process, like you said. It's not going to be like not everything's going to fall in place for you to make that decision.
Right.
So embrace the baby steps. It is okay.
Yeah, and
to not have everything
look,
figured out.
If you're looking for reasons to not make that move, you'll find them because it's a hard thing to do. So, yeah, we're in a comfort zone. That's what a comfort zone is. I could look for so many reasons to not pursue music because the shit's hard. But if you're gonna, they could have found so many, like I said, well, what are we gonna do about the car? What are we gonna do about the house? What are we gonna do about the cat? What are we gonna do about our, you can always find the reasons. So you have to decide, because when we bring it back to quarantine and people are considering like, oh, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. I want to encourage people not to you have to plan and think ahead. And my mom is like the type A planner, organizational. She's that type of person, but she has that other side to her that balances it out where you're like, make your plans, have ideas of what you want, the emails you need to send or the places you want to apply, have a plan, but also understand that it's impossible for you to sit down and be like, okay, this is going to happen, then this, and this. Now I feel good about making this jump and I'm going to do it. Well, then it wouldn't be called a jump and then it wouldn't be so scary. Yeah.
Right.
So like you
I think it's also, I think about us starting this podcast even. Like we use you getting fired as our jumping off point, but that doesn't mean no matter what project or what kind of avenue you want to start, you have to wait for something like that to happen. Exactly. And that's just what happened for us. And unfortunately, not that we think we started way too late. But it did make happy.
Us. We both were like, we reflected on that and we're like, I'm so glad it happened. But also like, wow, we could have done this at any point, and it just hammered that home because we had talked about it.
Yep, and we had talked about it for a long. We're like, oh, one day, and. Yeah, it's just you can start at any point. Just trust yourself because you know what you love. You do. And if you don't, maybe your jumping off point or whatever, shift you need to do is to find out.
Yeah.
Because
and honestly, it's also enough to go off of. Maybe you don't know what you ultimately love, but if you know that you don't love what you're doing.
Right.
You don't love where you are.
That's enough.
That is enough.
Yeah.
Start from there. That is enough, because you will find, and it's not, don't be a perfectionist in the sense of the next thing has to be something I love. No, it just has to be different. And the next thing after that will be different. And you will find your way into the light of something that feels more authentic to who you are. And, you know, I think my parents also, they were very realistic in the interview. Like, yeah, this was hard and this was hard. And we don't really know about all, it's not like, oh, it's magically just wonderful. It's yeah, there's still struggles. But do you have struggles right now living a life that you're unsatisfied with?
Right.
Yeah. So do you want to trade those out for some different ones that might aid you in getting somewhere else? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's in the fact that they did that at that stage in life is what makes it so unique too.
Yeah. And I try and, you know, to take what your parents say and what they've taught you. And for me, like even right now, like I am doing what I love. Of course I should say had a day job where I got not getting fulfilled.
Yeah.
But how I can take from this specifically is I can start trusting my intuition more.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I didn't know people saw me as ambitious. That's fucking weird to me. And maybe I should think about that.
Yeah.
And do something with it. Do something more with it. Trust that I can make more of an impact. And if for me, and like what comes to mind is, because I keep saying I want to start a Twitch account because I'm a loser who loves video games and I'm kind of really good at it.
Say what Twitch is, because I didn't know until you told me, so I don't know if everyone's gonna know.
So Twitch is it's like a streaming service, so you can watch people play video games. So you see them like in a box, and you can like most of the screen is just like them playing the game, so you can see their first person, like them playing the game, and it's like wildly popular and wildly entertaining to watch. And you make money. People donate.
That's crazy.
It was weird. I was watching this one, and it's also fun to watch because there's so many different personalities. People make it their own.
Also, you're a very fun shit talker to listen to. Like I can just picture you playing a video game, just like saying shit to the screen. Like you're funny to watch when you're
Ryan
like
is
going
nodding.
off.
I have a dirty mouth. But it's fun and it's a good stress reliever, and it's just a way to do something. So I feel like that's what I'm saying. So it's not a huge thing, but it's something small that you can at least make an adjustment in your life.
Yeah.
That makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I started the account a few days ago, and I just have to figure out how to get my PS4 set up with it. But I don't know. I mean, it sounds so, when I'm saying it out loud, it sounds so minuscule than like the bigger picture of what your parents are saying.
No, it's very much, you're relating it to, it's not just these massive leave your country decisions that need to take place. It's very relevant.
So I say that just to make anybody who might be intimidated by making a life change, that it can be small. It can be something small that takes care of your insides, your heart and your mind, just to get you through the day, get you through life, because again, life is too short to not be doing what you love. And if you need a wake-up call, let this episode be one for you.
Yeah. And sometimes, I don't know if you do, I get like so, in a good way, so overwhelmed with inspiration and beauty when I go down, like whether I'm reading a book that I love, or even like a magazine that's talking about a certain art exhibit or a certain photographer, or I'm just like putting together a mood board of images I love. I mean, anything, it hits me sometimes. I just get overwhelmed with this, like, holy shit, there is so much beauty and inspiration in the world everywhere. And just because we are talking careers, but that's another symptom, is like we're always training people, how can I turn this into a career? How can I do what you love? Just start doing it. It'll likely turn into something if you're truly passionate about it and you grow your talents in it. But that isn't even the point. Like eventually that's a goal, of course. Like with this podcast, ideally we'd get sponsors, we start making money off of it. That is the dream. But we're not right now. And it's fulfilling me still. And it's like, you just need to just start doing it. You don't need all the answers. Stop stop, just quiet that part of your mind. If you want to go take pictures, I'm not really a photographer. I don't have a good camera. You know how I took photos at my friend's wedding with my iPhone and people were like, were you the photographer at the wedding? No, bitch, that was my phone. Like,
Exactly.
just do stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like yelling at people, but I'm saying this to myself too, because you have to remember that you see beautiful things in the world all the time. And the people doing them are not always these like accredited 20 years of experience people. They're just people that understand beauty and they love what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all do that. You're not just an accountant. You're not just a server. You're not even just an actress, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you have no idea, if you don't know that about yourself, what other people might think of you. You know what I mean? You might be like, oh, I can't do the photography. Like I can't. You have no, like, people are like, what are you talking? I know that you can take pictures. You know, talk to your friends. Like maybe you need other, even though you shouldn't base it off of outside voices, but maybe you need that because, like I said, when my friend said I was ambitious, I would have never thought of myself as that. And that is something that since he said that, I mean, it was just yesterday, like I've been thinking about a lot, like in this 24 hours, I'm just like, I would have never thought anybody would think that of me. So you never know what word or adjective people actually are thinking of you as far as being ambitious, as far as being passionate about something.
Capable
because you can
of
do
something.
It and capable.
And
exactly.
it's just like, it hammers home how much we lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it's not like when he said that, it sounds like you weren't like, oh, I've never thought of that. It was more like you specifically didn't think that you were ambitious.
No.
Like it wasn't like you were neutral about it. You thought that you weren't, for example, or like we lie to ourselves all the time. And there are the obvious ones that we can pick out and be like, oh yeah, I know this is a lie. But the scarier ones are the ones that we don't realize are lies. And so a lot of it has to start with us really looking at, I mean, this is if you really want to do the work on yourself, this is something like I've done, write down limiting beliefs or things even if they're negative, like things I think about myself and really look at it and be like, why?
Right.
Who said this? Where did even if I know where it comes from, this happened once or someone said this once, and some bullshit though.
Yep.
Like,
and
we tell each other, we tell ourselves so many lies.
Yeah, especially as a musician and an actor. Like, that is just, that is what we focus on because that is our life, is to be judged, and therefore we judge ourselves so hard because that's kind of the industry. You know what I mean? It's half like, yes, we're doing it with love, we're expressing ourselves, but also we're battling a voice that is so stifling, and it stops us in our tracks from actually being fulfilled. Yeah.
Jordan Shomer, the astrologer we had on your guys' favorite episode, she gave me an exercise once to do. She said, write down 5 limiting beliefs you have about yourself. Ooh. And then write the inverse of those sentences. So for example, like I'm stubborn. And then, like they can go even for, what was one? Oh my gosh. Anyway, whatever. I wrote 5 of them down and I wrote the opposite down. And she's like, Molly, this is going to sound cheesy and you're going to feel like a fraud at first, but I promise you, every day, write down the 5 positive ones, the opposite of what you believe about yourself. And she said she did this for herself. And she's like, for weeks, I just felt, she's like, don't do it mindlessly. Like really think about what you're writing down and write those sentences down. She's like, for weeks, I felt like, this is stupid. Who do I think I am? This is annoying. I get it. I'm a good person. She's like, at the end of, she goes, well, when 5 months hit, I realized I was about 5 months in and I was writing these things down and I thought, oh my God, I believe this. I am this. And it's deconstructing and reprogramming ourselves. But the first step is identifying what your limiting beliefs are. Like I used to think I don't know where I got this story in my mind in elementary school that I wasn't good at sports. And I remember practicing, but I played volleyball through middle school and high school. And I was practicing in the yard one day and my dad was reading, he was sitting in the yard and he just looked up and like very genuinely, he's like, Molly, you're really athletic. And I just like, I don't think he even remembers this moment, but I was just like, what? Like kind of laughing. And he's like, no, you're really athletic. And he reminded me, I used to be on swim team. I have all these first place medals and like, wait, it just shifted. I was like, wait, I am. And it was so simple, but I really was like 15 years old. And I just, in my mind, I was like, I love volleyball. I play it but I'm not like one of the good ones. I'm not, what the hell?
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's an innate skill that we suppress, or whatever it is, whether it's athleticism or a talent or whatever that we suppress because we feel like we're never going to be good enough.
Or we don't like something and we, in our mind, saying, I don't like math turns into I'm not good at math. Somewhere along the lines, it shifts into that. And that is, sorry for all the bad language because mom and dad are definitely listening to this episode, but that is fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like no one ever sat me down and was like, Molly, you're not athletic. You're not good at sports. Nobody. No. I was doing well. Like, it's insane. I think we're just encouraging people to really like, we have time. We all have the time now because we're stuck at home and we're all sick of screen time at this point. So all that's left is to reflect on yourself. Listen to the episode with Rudy.
Unless you're me and your screen time is Call of Duty. So.
That's true. You need to get in your screen time. But it's just it's a self-reflection process. It takes time and focus, but also we don't have anything else to do right now.
So you might as well love yourself.
What?
So you might as well love yourself.
You might as well love yourself and like remind yourself who the fuck you are and remind yourself that you can do other things. You don't need the answers. Yep.
I'm snapping.
Clapping for ourselves. Clapping for my mom and dad, really.
Thank you so much for that interview.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. I know you're listening. I know you're out there.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
So glad I met you in 1989. It was a really fateful meeting.
It was really wild. It was a really weird experience, but
can't believe we crossed paths.
Regrets.
That was crazy.
No regrets. Oh God.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. So I chose a charity nonprofit to promote for this one in honor of my parents. I was looking for like teachers abroad, that kind of vibe. I didn't find anything that was like accredited in the way that I thought it should be. So, but then I came across this one and it just screamed my parents. It's the Pacific Crest Trail Association. So the Pacific Crest Trail is in the Cascades. It's this famous trail. It goes all the way. I think it stretches from like Oregon up through Canada. It's huge trail. I think there's a book, not Reese Witherspoon. It was in the movie based on that book.
Wild.
Yeah. It was about, I think she was on the Pacific Crest Trail. Anyway, it's glorious. My parents have hiked it. We lived in Washington. That's where I grew up. And this hits home because when we do travel as a family, my whole life, whether we're traveling in the United States or abroad, these are the types of places they seek out in other countries, in our own country. And when they are abroad or they're like specifically when they were in Africa and I was here, you gain more appreciation for where you come from when you're traveling. Even if you love where you're traveling to, it gives you a more appreciation for your own country. And they expressed a lot of appreciation and like, wow, we really did live in a beautiful place in the Pacific Northwest. And anyway, my dad's an environment biologist. They're environmental conservationist. Yeah,
conservationist.
Yeah. A lot of different words there.
You get
it. So the Pacific Crest Trail Association, founded in 1977, the mission is to protect, preserve, and promote the Pacific Crest National Scenic Trail as an internationally significant resource for the enjoyment of hikers and equestrians and for the value that wild and scenic lands provide to all people. The association strives to achieve this mission by promoting the Pacific Crest National Scenic Trail as a unique educational and recreation treasure and as one of the finest trails anywhere in the world, providing a broad range of services to its membership, including serving as a communications link among users and land management agencies, and publishing trail information and assisting in the U.S. Forest Service and other agencies in the maintenance and restoration of the Pacific Crest National Scenic Trail. That's like a mouthful. So to donate, go to pcta.org/donate.
That sounds amazing.
It's,
and now
yeah,
I want to
really
read Wild again.
And it is one of the most, seriously, the Northwest is one of the most gloriously beautiful parts of our country. I would recommend everybody go.
I really, actually, side note, I really want to take another road trip because me and Ryan had done that like all the way up the coast to, where did we get to, Ryan?
Yep. PCH.
Washington? Brookings.
Where?
Oregon. Brookings, Oregon.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but it was amazing, and I want to go again so bad, and this makes me want to visit.
Yeah. And that's the type of like, you know, land conservation, those places, they're internationally known trails and wildlife and nature. It's things people come to our country to see those places too. So we got to keep them there. Yeah. So there's that.
So for next week's episode, it's going to get funky up in here. We, let us take you to another time, another dimension, another realm during this in-depth conversation with our resident fun guy. Did you get that?
Did you get
Fungi?
Mushrooms.
Fun guy, but fun guy, Fungui. Great. Ryan's looking at me like I have 5 heads. Our friend is anonymous. He anonymously goes by the witch doctor and sheds the myths and confusions about magic mushrooms and shares his life-changing experiences while tripping. And I have never taken mushrooms.
Me neither. And I'm highly open to it.
I'm not, but I will babysit you.
This is gonna be a challenge to not say his name. Okay, so our anonymous friend, Alyssa and I have known him for years, and it's not like, oh, this is our friend who trips mushrooms all the time.
No.
He is insanely knowledgeable in this field, like scientifically. I mean, he has studied this in depth, and
he's going to school for he'll go into it about like his education on it and future education on it,
and has guided people in their experiences, and he knows. I mean, he's a botanist with it. He knows how to
the different strains, I guess
different strains. He's created his own strains. He is. It's incredible. He's fully a scientist about this. So this isn't just like, let's talk to our friend who gets high all the time. This is some real shit.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I'm interested. I have a lot of questions for him. So
I'm so
tune
excited. Thank you so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter at the SOS Pod. I don't know if I mentioned this last episode, but like me and Molly bought our like URL and it took a while to kick in, but check out our website, SOS. Is it a slash? Hyphen?
Dash.
What's that? What's
the the
dash?
straight across dash?
Yeah. Is that a dash?
Yeah.
God, what a nightmare I am. SOS podcast.com. It's okay. I'm going to write that down later that I'm a nightmare, and I'm going to write the opposite.
I am a dream. And then say that to yourself every day.
I am a dream. I am a dream.
But I thought of if we're going off the puns of fun guy and fun guy, I would like to end this episode by saying, here's to turning meltdowns into magic mushrooms. It's silent, but Alyssa's appreciating.
I thought we were ending it.
I was like, I mean, I don't know. We could end it there. Anyway, tune in next week.
Tune in next week. Wait, follow us on YouTube. Find us at SOS with Molly and Alyssa. Find us on YouTube. Okay, great.
Bye.